if I may follow up.
Sure.
Are you going to go what some might consider a bit harder and pushing back against what you're trying to do? You know, will your tenor change or intensify?
My tenor will be appropriate for what I think is important for the district. And what's important for the district is that we can take care of our citizens. And if people are concerned about a president's ability to have the MPD police department be responsive to the Department of Justice, the time to address that is when we're talking about statehood for DC. If people are concerned about the president being able to move the National Guard into our city, the time to do that would have been when the Congress had a bill that it could have given control of the DC National Guard to DC. So there are things that when a city is not a state and not fully autonomous and doesn't have senators, that the federal government can do. Yeah. Well, yeah.
Just to follow on his question, you at times in President Trump's first term were more confrontational, especially in 2020. You've tried to be more cooperative this time. Any second thoughts about that approach? And are you playing any sort of defiance, symbolic or whatever, in light of this?
Well, I would refer you to the law. Home Rule Charter, he referred to it. I would refer you to the executive order. And so everything that we have said maintains my authority given by the Home Rule Charter. Yeah.
Josh Chapman, Channel 7. I just want to be clear also that this ramp up, this emergency we're talking about, is a brief period. It's a 30-day period, am I right?
The charter gives him the ability to do it for 30 days, yes.
So that means cooperating with the, whatever he wants to do.
Well, it means that we follow the law, and that the MPD follows the law as well as all of the federal officials who are here. It's also important and we will do this in our communications with them, understand like what they're looking to see. So the fact that we have more law enforcement and presence in neighborhoods, that could not, that may be positive if people are, if it's a positive action. That's what the executive order says. Yeah, Mark.
Well, a couple of quick questions. One, do you know will the National Guard be on?
I don't know.
And then, what if the Attorney General directs the Chief of Police to redirect sources to do something that you and the Chief disagree with? For instance, redirect resources from east of the river to the federal enclave or something like that. Will you comply with, you say you're going to follow the law, you say you want to be cooperative. What if you get a directive from the White House with the Attorney General that you just set fast that you don't agree with and think it's the wrong move and jeopardize public safety in other neighborhoods? Will you comply?
I don't have any reason to think that at this point, Mark, so I don't want to speculate about that. The executive order, as is the Home Rule Charter, is pretty clear that the directives have to be, the requests have to be related to federal purposes.
And then can I ask, the President threatened to use not just the National Guard, but the military, to bring the United States military, federal troops into the District of Columbia if needed. Can you respond to that threat? I mean, we're in uncharted waters already. A lot of people are seeing this as the first step in an assault on following the rule, which the President has threatened. We've been making these threats since last year, and now he's carrying through with them. There's no reason to believe he won't go further. What do you say to the President about his threats to bring the military, not just the National Guard, but the military?
We don't, and I think I speak for all Americans, we don't believe it's legal to use the American military against American citizens on American soil. I'm not a lawyer, and but I think that's a fairly widely held fact. And so, but we've seen them move, I think, active military into California. So it's a question. We've seen active military on the borders of DC some years ago, and we don't believe that our military should be used against American citizens. Yes.
Mayor Bowser, can you talk a little bit about the communication that you did receive before this morning? Did you know what this announcement was going to be before today? And can you just talk about the communication writ large before today? And secondarily, what do you say to DC residents who wanted to hear more from you, specifically in the last 5 days, being forthright, speaking to press and media? Can you just...
DC residents know I'm forthright. That's not a question. DC residents know that, and this press corps should know I speak to you all the time. So you should know that as well. And your question was, when I did not know that the request of MPD would be made, I believed that they would announce that they were going to call up the National Guard. I had one brief phone call related to the National Guard issue over the weekend. Yes. Can you identify yourself? Okay.
Can you tell us what your main challenges were going to be? Chief Smith, the DC Police, working with officials, and are you concerned that any federal official overseeing the DC Police Department is not going to know the city as well as Chief Smith and your officers?
Chief Smith oversees the MPD, and all of the requests and coordination for the federal request. I don't really have a doubt that is going to, among those officials who are law enforcement officials who have experience working together, I don't have a big concern about that communication and coordination happening. Who hasn't yet?
Hi, Emma Huber with the Washington Post. During the news conference this morning, President Trump spoke about how he wanted to empower DC police to hit back harder. Are you aware of any changes in the works to MPD's use of force policies? And does that kind of rhetoric, how do you feel about that kind of rhetoric? Our
police officers are highly professional, well-trained officers that we support with training throughout their careers. We're proud of where our department has come from in terms of their level of professionalism. So they're trained in constitutional policing, and that is our expectation. Yes. Hold on, you passed the question one more.
Just follow up on that.
Yeah.
So will they still be fully subject to local regulations when it comes to use of force, body cameras while under federal patrol and MPD officers?
MPD reports to the chief of police, and they are subject to DC and local laws as well as federal laws.
And that'll continue even under this plan?
Yes. Yes.
Tell you about this announcement before it happened today. Did the White House or the president bring up their concerns with crime before last week?
The president talks about crime all the time.
Specifically in DC?
Yes. Have you not heard the president from the campaign trail? In every conversation I have with him, we're always briefing the president on our progress. In fact, my first meeting with him after he was elected the second time, we went over the crime trends. We went over how we're seeing decreases. So the president is read in on our efforts. Who hasn't? Yep, over here.
I'm sure the Associated Press. A lot of this seems to be perceptions of what constitutes an emergency. The White House and the administration says there's an obvious emergency. Your administration, with numbers of the council, says there is not an emergency here. How do you solve that? Is there an arbitration option? Where does it go from here? It feels like, do you agree that it comes down to what constitutes an emergency? What's next?
Well, what I would point you to is the Home Rule Charter that gives the president the ability to determine the conditions of an emergency. And we could contest that, but the authority is pretty broad. And so, like, if you wanted to say the most outrageous thing, one might say, well, I won't say that. It could be something very small. Like, I'm not saying that that's what he's doing, but it could be. And if he deems it and he puts the meat around it and the argument around what he thinks is an emergency. When we think of emergencies, it usually involves surges in crime. Or crime that's not being responsive, or tools that we have that we can't use in the normal course. That's what, when we use an emergency, that's what it's for. Yeah.
Tori 9, ABC News National. Wanted to see if you could respond directly to some of what the president said this morning. Do you agree or have any thoughts on the picture he's painting? He said that there are, quote, bloodthirsty criminals, end quote, or roving mobs of wild youth, end quote. He also said that DC police can do whatever the hell they want, end quote. Are you okay with that? What does that mean? Do you have any response to him or the White House talking about the DC crime stats?
I mean, I think I've already addressed all of those questions. Anything else? Yep.
Scott Gunn with WTOP. You described, this morning was described as a federal takeover of MPD. It sounds like you're describing this as Chief Smith is still in charge and everything will run through the department. What will this look like on a day-to-day basis as it relates to what has transpired here? What can people expect to see? Is this an instance where you all work collaboratively for big events and this is something comparable to that?
No, I don't, it's not like that. It's not like the special events task force where we work together. And I think I don't want to minimize what was said. And I don't want to minimize the intrusion on our autonomy because it is very different than working a special event. So that is not what we're trying to do. But I think the chief, and I'll turn to her in a second to talk to you about what she thinks is going to be most helpful to MPD.
I want to believe I answered the question a little bit earlier, but I think what's helpful to us is that we come together and we look at data, we look at intelligence when it comes to crime across our city, violent crimes as well as property crimes. And so there are other things that the federal government is also very useful for, useful in supporting us, and that is in the city is warrants, right? The execution of warrants, the U.S. Marshals holds those. This will be an opportunity for us to come together and collaborate on being able to go out and execute warrants. As we think about over the past, came in 2 years ago, 5 years prior, we looked at some of our data where we saw an increase in violent crime in certain areas across our city. We designated those areas as a homicide reduction partnership plan with some of our federal officers. What we'll do in that space is we'll enhance that presence. The other thing is that most of you know we have a nightlife task force. U Street, we have a lot of tourists, residents, individuals who come into our city on a Thursday night, Friday night, or Saturday night and enjoy the nightlife culture. We will also be able to utilize that enhanced presence in and around that area and any other crime trends that we might see that will go forth. We have our drug-free zones where we also align our federal partners in those spaces as well as our juvenile curfew zones.
May I just follow up quickly, Chief? So again, this morning it's being described as a federal takeover. You all are describing it as an opportunity to enhance the crime prevention strategies you have in place. To the community who's confused about the discrepancies, where does it fall?
Well, I just articulated to you where it falls. And what I mean by that is that with respect to the two federal partners who will be working alongside me, the operations and the administrative liaison, we have a meeting scheduled for today right after this meeting, and we will be able to create an operational plan for our city that will continue to keep our city safe.
Chief Smith, I just have one question.
You just broke the rule. Maybe somebody else haven't asked the question already. Okay, is that it? Okay, all right.
One question.
Yes, sir.
Data a lot we've talked about.
Mhm.
Data is coming from D,
Yep.
saying that crime has been going down. However, this morning Trump did cite a report where Sarda was accused of messing with the crime numbers. So would you be able to respond to some of what Trump said directly this morning?
Well, I cannot respond to any internal investigations, and I think, as you know, we do not talk about personnel actions with regards to our personnel. Sam.
Two-part question.
For me?
Yes.
Okay.
And this is in regards to the youth. What is your
professional assessment of how MPD has handled the so-called youth takeovers? And I guess the second part of my question might be more appropriate for the mayor, but.
Well, can I ask the first question, then you can ask the mayor the second question. I think when it comes to the juveniles, and I've said this, I'm very passionate about young people who are going to do great things in our city. And we have a lot of young people who are moving in that trajectory and in that space. The problem is we have a small subset of young people who do not. And I've said to parents, you need to know where your children are. We've talked about this over and over again. The mayor has enacted an executive order so that I, as the chief, can designate juvenile curfew zones around our city so that we can still give young people the opportunity to be able to be in those spaces based on what the laws and the regulations state, but we won't allow the disruptive behavior. And we've seen that time and time again. We've looked at intelligence, we've looked at data. Sometimes we look at things that are on social media to help guide our decisions. We want young people to be safe in our city. We want them to be able to enjoy the activities of our city, but we're not going to tolerate that kind of criminal activity that we've seen in the past. The juvenile curfew zone that was enacted, we've seen a decrease in our juvenile participation in those locations.
And Madam Mayor,
Yes.
How effective would it be to federalize crimes that you commit? Because I keep hearing that from the U.S. Attorney for D.C., but how effective would that be as a crime prevention strategy?
Well, I have had a pretty, we had a meeting with the U.S. Attorney for Janine Pirro last week, and she does have a lot of interest in juvenile crimes and how her office can be more engaged. What I committed to her then was having some conversations around the laws that she's concerned about with members of the council and seeing if there's any possibility of an omnibus to change that. With regard to who prosecutes or what crime she can prosecute, that's not a local law change. That would be a congressional change.
May I hear you correctly in saying that you would embrace the change in those three laws?
I have a position on at least 2 or 3 of those I can refer you to. I would, because I'm going to get them mixed up in my head right now, but I will be happy to share that with you. Okay, I'll take a few more. Yep.
And along with those laws that Sam was just talking about earlier today, we also sort of focus on DC's bail system, being a cashless bail system.
Mm-hmm.
Was that part of your discussion?
It's the first time I ever heard that come up in a situation with DC. DC has had a no cash, whatever you call it, cashless bail, I think since the mid-90s. So that's not anything new to our system. We do, and you know that I was very, very focused in the last 2 years on having the council pass laws that would allow judges to hold violent offenders, those accused of a violent offense, pre-trial. And I believe that provision has led to our very substantial decrease in shootings and homicides. Yeah.
I wonder if you could specifically speak to some of the concerns that U.S. Attorney Pirro has raised about her perception of lenient sentencing for youth charged with violent crimes. Do you think that's an issue? And as she suggested, potentially charging some instances, prosecuting youth as adults, is that a potential solution, or do you agree with that?
Well, the U.S. Attorney has the ability to prosecute youth for some crimes as adults. And I think she's interested in expanding that and possibly lowering the age. What I committed to her to do was look at all of the what's allowable in the law now, the types of crimes, working with the council, and working on some changes.
So do you agree with her, though, that needs to be expanded, or do you think that is an unhelpful solution?
I don't want to say right now, because that could mean a lot of things. We want to really analyze what we think would keep us safer, the link to crime. I will say this, and this is, some of you are new to covering us and covering these issues, but I have been in my tenure of service very pro accountability, okay? I am an accountability mayor. If you commit a crime in the district with a gun, there has to be accountability, and that's if you are an adult or if you are a juvenile. I don't think we always have that accountability. I think what was missing from the press conference a little bit earlier, however, is what people also don't know about the district. Our prosecutors are not local. Okay, they don't get elected by anybody here. They don't report to any of us. They are appointed by the president. We've also had a period of time where some of the very good police arrests that have been made were not prosecuted by the U.S. Attorney's Office. So the prosecution is a federal element. Judges are appointed by the President of the United States as well. And so those are not local judges. They don't report to any of us. So that is a part of the federal system. So anytime we talk about crime in the district, it is part local and part federal that can make changes. All right, I'll take just a few more. Mark.
The President made numerous threats about removing homeless encampments and dealing with people in the district who are experiencing homelessness. Can you talk about what preparations that you're making, your administration is making to facilitate this and what this, you had any of those conversations with the White House, what that's going to look like and where these people would go, if they would be FD12
We really haven't gotten any more detail about the plan, about the words that he said. It wasn't referenced in the executive order that came down, so we're going to work. And I believe he had a previous executive order that also identified Attorney General Bondi as a point of contact as it relates to homelessness and such. So we'll follow up with her. Okay, last two questions. Yes.
I want to go back again to the federal commissioner of the Metropolitan Police Department. It sounds like the chief has described this person very cold as an advisor, as a liaison, as something. The president, people were saying that person, this Jerry Cole, is going to be in charge of the police department.
I can't really comment on that, Tom. I can only tell you what's in the executive order, and that's what controls. Yep.
Will DMH just be coordinated with law enforcement?
Can you identify yourself?
Hi, I'm with Street Sense Media.
Okay. What's your name?
Maddie Kessler.
Okay. Thanks, Maddie.
Will DMH just be coordinating with law enforcement when it comes to increasing camera clearance from disaster support? And then if AG Bondi directs the law enforcement to arrest new people experiencing homelessness, how do DC will Chief Smith comply?
Well, let me just say what MPD needs to be focused on, and it's violent crime. We simply, like our force, when the chief deploys every day and every night, is focused on people who are committing crimes in the district. So I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, one more if I could.
Okay.
You testified to Congress after the 2020 racial justice protests when there was concern that Trump might take control over MPD at that time, that would be a complete disaster, and that you're worried that you're going to lose control of the city. Can you reflect on this moment today? Do you feel that you're at risk of losing control of the city? Are you worried this is going to be a complete disaster?
I'm going to work every day to make sure it's not a complete disaster. Let me put it that way. And I think that with Chief Smith's leadership and her expertise in both the federal space and the local space, we are going to do our level best to maintain, as the chief talked about, to maintain the trust that DC residents have in us. What could be a disaster is if we lose communities who won't call the police. That could be a disaster. Well, it will be a disaster if communities won't talk to the police, if a crime has been committed and could help solve that crime. That could be a disaster. It would be a disaster if people who aren't committing crimes are antagonized into committing crimes. That would be a disaster. So we're going to work every day to get this emergency put to an end. I'll call it the so-called emergency, and continue to do our work. And at the same time, make sure that if these are like the law enforcement officers who are called, they're leaving their homes, their towns, maybe doing double shifts. If our National Guard are deployed, they're leaving their primary mission to come. We don't want their time to be wasted. We want to be strategic and work with them. But I'll end by saying this. If we know the tools that are available to the district if we are experiencing a surge in crime, and I put them in place before. It includes curfews. I've asked the council to pass emergency legislation. I've asked the Congress for additional funds. We've done all of those things. So there's nobody here, and certainly nobody who works for me, who wants to tolerate any level of crime. And I know it's
Magistrat d'ici Washington, Mme Marcelin qui t'a répondre à question journaliste. Dans le cadre de rencontre avec la presse pour fixer position autorité locale après décision que chef d'État américain Donald Trump a annoncé jeudi dans une rencontre aussi avec la presse et que la police métro de DC libre aller sous compte l'État fédéral. Peter Xed qui est responsable défense, monsieur lui-même lui confirmé pas de temps là pour que d'ici semaine nous voyons que il déploie garde nationale dans la cour Washington pour aider pour diminuer crime dans city ou bien dans state là d'après ça que chef d'État fait connaître. Il fait comprendre que gangsters ensemble avec drug dealer prend state Washington pour eux. Mme Janine Pirot, qui est nouveau ministre de Justice Washington DC, que chef d'État a été appointé, qui a une confirmation et que Mme Muriel s'est confirmée là, il n'a pas gagné aucun contrôle sous Mme Sa qui est responsable de justice dans la cour Washington DC. C'est l'affaire du président de la République qui nomme et qui a droit également. Il fait comprendre que le juge qui est dans Washington, mais justice là, il n'a pas rapporté à lui-même ou bien à l'autre responsable, l'autre autorité dans la ville de Washington. Selon un magistrat qui t'a parlé, il dit plus passé une dizaine d'années de service, plus passé une dizaine d'années d'expérience de servir la communauté américaine à travers state Washington, il connaît très bien et il prend un pile de décisions. Il fait comprendre que bagala était catastrophique toutes les fois que la population n'a pas décidé pour partager information ensemble avec agents policiers qui eux même sont responsables locaux dans la cour Washington. Nous avons rappelé que chef d'État non seulement a annoncé déploiement garde nationale, mais militaire également. 800 membres de l'armée américaine va gagner pour déployer dans la cour Washington DC dans l'idée pour mettre sécurité en place. Chef d'État allé dans la même lignée avec Mme Janine Pirot qui croit que conseil de monde 15, 16, 17 ans que arrêté, il doit juger tant que grand monde qui gagne plus que 20 ans, 25 ans d'après sa autorité estimée. Gentil moun sa qui participe dans une série de crimes, autorité en place décider pour capable juger tant que c'est grand monde qui pour mettre en prison, prendre sentence contre yo tant que yo te n'importe grand monde. Donc c'est ça Mme Janine Pirot annoncé. En contre-pied à administration fédérale là, Maryland, Mme Muriel fait connaître que yo même yo gagne un bon rapport côté que la police a travail et rapport que yo mette déjà, li diminue crime qui était fait dans la cour Washington DC à plus que 50% d'après ça Mme Nali même li te déclaré. Cependant États-Unis a fait connaître que dans cadre démarche contre ne kap di gang se kap vend drogue yo, ou bien gang se kap touye arrêté moun pa bo ici, et bien yon quantité zak qui fait en Haïti tout, là dans figure yo va décider aider pays d'Haïti pour kap pallier à problème si là, mais gen bourrade des militaires et armement ensemble avec l'argent tout kap sorti là, qui va jeune pays Ukraine ensemble avec pays les États-Unis et qui lui-même a pu supporter pays Israël dans le cadre de bataille que Israël a livré face à groupe Hamas. Nous connaissons le date 7 octobre 2023, Hamas a fait une intervention musclée dans la cour pays Canada, dans occasion pays Israël pardon, dans occasion ça, il est arrivé kidnapper plus passé 1 millier citoyens là-dedans yo gagné américain qui était participé qui était là que était arrivé kidnappé et malgré que yo était fait promesse à libérer ces cadavres yo arrivé joindre il y a quelques américains qui sont encore présents sur le territoire israélien. C'est-à-dire américains qui gagnent double nationalité, moun qui américain et qui sortent de notre pays également. Nous connaissons que ça veut dire ça, il sorti et lui-même il fait partie de la communauté juive là, et bien qui a pu travail par bon site. Donc nous disons merci pour fidélité parce que vous avez choisi pour un Pstars radio et télévision d'essayer d'informer de ce qui a passé dans le cadre réouverture ou bien ouverture l'école pour année si là. Donc parents yo pain sous planche, monsieur dame policier tout qui ont aidé dans traverser la rue ti moun sa eh bien la police li gen pain sous planche dans cadre travail si là qui fait commencer dans radio pour la Pstars radio et télévision ça fait informer là nous fait commencer là pour tes nouvelles pour ça qui domine actualité sous plan national et international. Quant à moi, mes amis, serviteurs qui c'est Prien, John Smith et Dominique, nous allons retourner probablement un peu plus tard. N'importe l'autre gros dossier, nous allons porter le pour nous va continuer à informer. Nous allons saluer une autre fois comme Mme Wilnise. Nous saluons également Mme Woodlove, nous saluons Mme Woodline Pierre, sans que nous pas oublier Syndrome. Nous avons parlé de Mme Wood Pierre aussi, qui du côté de la République dominicaine, Mme Marcelin comme on y est, ensemble avec sa belle-fille, sa poupée, nous avons parlé de Stéphanie. Nous saluons tout le monde net qui branché, Pstars, radio et télévision. Dans le ça, nous comptons pour nous capables de servir sous réseau pour là. Rebrancher tout le monde.